Welcome to Conversations with Colie, where we have conversations about subjects we think about but often don't speak about. My name is Nicole Miller, and I'm the author of this book series, A through Z, Guide to Raising a Good Human, a series I wrote to help in the communication process. Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Colie. Today I'm speaking with guest Danieylah Veola, whose story is very similar to my own. She is going to share her struggles and how she came to the healing path she is on today. Welcome, Danieylah.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So I start with an icebreaker question. So this one's yours.
All right.
If you were born in a past era before the modern times of today, what would you miss the most?
I guess the convenience. We live a very convenient kind of life. So I guess overall the convenience is what I would miss, how easy and instantaneous everything is.
Yeah. No more groceries to your doorstep.
Exactly. No more clicking, it's done.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So my background, I was born in New York, on Long Island, New York. Middle class family, middle of Long Island. My background growing up, I had two brothers. I had a pretty typical childhood, in a typical dysfunctional family, or most families are dysfunctional. I went to school. I got 3 college degrees. I went out into the workforce, was an actress for a time. 9/11 hit, and also a singer. 9/11 hit and the whole entertainment industry fell apart. Went back to school, got some more degrees, worked off of Wall Street, got married, had a child, and so much stuff in between, right? I've had a very, very varied background, but as an umbrella to that background, I always had my spiritual connection. So like when I first came into the world, the veil didn't drop for me. Like I was bridging both worlds. So I would just have out of body experiences and OBEs, like astral travel at will. That shut down when I was around 7. My mother, terrorized me to shut that down. And then I just kind of lost connection with that. And, my life went into a whole nother realm and then came full circle back again. So I have a very varied background.
Oh, okay. Did you have like a traumatic childhood at all?
Yeah, my my whole childhood. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had fun and I had great memories, and my parents loved me to the best of their ability. But my father was gone, and my mother was very abusive. So my mother was dealing with all sorts of. I only came later on to realize that she was a narcissist. I just really in the past few years I realized
Right.
that. And I had abandonment issues. My father wasn't around. He was more the kind-hearted person. My mother was dealing with a lot of post-traumatic syndrome and various mental and emotional dysfunction and disturbances. And she took it out on us. Like we weren't allowed to be children. We were expected to be adults. And when you weren't, it was corporal punishment, mental and emotional abuse. So it speckled my entire youth.
And maybe is that why you tapped into that out of body type thing to kind of as an escape?
No, actually, that was just my being. I came in born like that. So,
Okay.
my mom said that I was the most easiest and peaceful and joyful baby she ever knew.
Yeah.
I would just, she said she could leave me in my baby swing all day long, and because I would just entertain myself. Just no problem. Cry for my mom. She wouldn't be there. No problem. Pop myself out of the body, float around on the ceiling, find her in the house. The that ended when I was about 7 years old because I was sleepwalking at night often, and I would find her and I would cry at her. So I would just find her in the house, foot of the bed, at the end of the couch, and I would just stare into her like with this ghostly stare and just sob and sob at her. And one morning when I woke up, she just grabbed me and she said, "No more. This is over. It's done. Never again. You never to do this again." I mean, pierced right through my soul. And I just shut it all down. I still had many adventures, but never consciously. It was always in my dreamscape that I would have those. So I really didn't have an escape mechanism. I was very, very present for what was
what was
happening.
going on.
Just became desensitized and used to the abuse, in that sense, just thinking that this is just the way it is, right? Just kind of assume.
So when you got to be 18 or however old you were when you decided to leave home, for me, I was 16 when I left. Did you go then to another relationship, or did you live at all on your own?
Yeah. So what I did was the last real bout of like physical abuse. And I would say, I mean, my mother always mentally and emotionally, it was always traumatic dealing with her one level or another, but was when I was 17. So she found out I was jumping out of my window to see my boyfriend and found out I was, I was having sex with him. And she like really unleashed that on me. And then it was actually about a year later, maybe even a year, 2 years later. So maybe I was around 18, 19, where she went to hit me. And I just looked at her and I said, go ahead, I'll hit you right back. And that was it. That was the last time she knew at that point she couldn't do that to me anymore. So I still remained in the house because I had ambitions for myself. And I knew if I left, that it would mean I would never get anywhere. And I really wanted to travel. And I did. I lived over in Europe for a time and I toured with groups and I had wonderful adventures, but I stayed home until I was about 24 years old. And yes, I went into a relationship with somebody, and that person at some point tried to, physically intimidate me. And I shut that down right away. Like I would not allow somebody to physically harm me. But what I didn't realize that I was doing was I was recreating the mental and the emotional abuse in all of my relationships. See, I thought, I got over that, right? I'm not letting anybody touch me. But meanwhile, I had no emotional boundaries. I had no mental emotional boundaries. So I was just getting beaten up proverbially on those levels through an ongoing string of relationships.
Yeah. And I'm sure being treated that way as a young child, that's what set the tone. And yeah. And I don't know about you, but there was no clear red flags for me when finding a partner. Do you know what I mean? Until later. Then I was handed a paper and I was like, oh, right?
Right. Check that.
Yeah. Where was this? Because that could have saved me a lot. So how did you cope? So for me, when I was growing up in such an abuse situation, I was 13. I started taking like Xanax and doing drugs. What did you do to cope with the childhood trauma that, your mom instilled on you?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question to ask. Me, I worked really hard. I worked a lot. By the time I was a senior in high school, I was working 3 jobs. I wanted to get out of there, but I wanted to do it right. I did not want to do it because I was running away. Because when that episode happened where my mom found me jumping out the window and beat the pulp out of me, it was very, very, very traumatic. And the school, one of my friends brought me, I mean, I was so out of it. She in the school, she brought me down. My girlfriend brought me down to the nurse, and unbeknownst to me, she went to the nurse and said, I want it documented that all those marks and everything on her body is from her mother.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that she did that. And they called me down to the principal's office with my girlfriend, and they offered me an out. They said, you never have to go back to that house. You can move in with her. And right away I said, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that, because I know that if I run, I'm going to be running the rest of my life. Like I have to work through this, and I was terrified. Because my mother was coming up and everything. But what wound up happening was I just wound up staying and working through that situation. I did not allow it to have me run out. I worked through it by working on what I was taught by my father was, if you want to be anything or do anything, you got to be educated. And so I put all of my effort and time and attention into getting educated. But in order to get educated, I needed money. I was in that middle bracket where the government was telling me my parents are claiming me, so they should be paying. Then my parents saying we don't have enough money, the government should be paying, so I had to pay. So by the time I was a senior in high school, I was working 3 jobs.
Wow.
I worked so much. and then I would self-medicate, I guess, in a sense, by, work hard, play hard. So then
Mm.
I would go out, I loved to go dancing, I loved to sing, I loved to perform. So I put a lot of energy into those things. But really the crux of it was work
Mm.
hard, educate yourself, and just push through it. I mean, I always had that drive, just push through, just push through, just push through. So that's really how I coped with it, at that
Oh,
young
that's
age.
good. That's good. Did you ever struggle with any kind of substance in your life?
Oh, yes, yes. So I wound up a string of relationships with those that were much more into that kind of scene than I was. I would be able to dabble in it, but it didn't dominate my life. I would just
Mm-hmm.
do it recreationally, I go to a club or something like that. But then I took on a series of relationships where it was like a lifestyle. These
Mm.
guys had it as a lifestyle. And I still, managed to like teeter on the edge of that, where I wasn't really like addicted, where I had any kind of rebound effect or anything like that. But eventually what happened was I got addicted to Adderall. So I
Mm.
had gotten myself into such a bad place. I was so lost and so out of alignment with who I was and what I really wanted and what I really felt. I was so disconnected. And I was dealing with like not being able to remember things. Like I couldn't remember where I left my keys. It was hard for me to get out of bed, but now I'm like a single mom and I got like a young 3-year-old and I'm working from home. And I'm working for in corporate, attached to a company that was one of the biggest media companies and based in Lower Manhattan. And it got so bad. I went to a psychiatrist. I said, "This is my issue. Like I just can't get my energy up. I can't, and I'm leaving the stove on, and keys in the front door, like phone on top of my car, and then driving off and finding it on the road. I mean, it was so bad. So he
Yeah.
put me on Adderall, and then I just started abusing Adderall.
Mm.
And then I was mixing Adderall with other drugs like MDMA or ecstasy. I was, but all the while pushing ahead, just like I always
Yep.
did. Just keep pushing, and then I would have like little escapism reliefs, little. And it just got so bad where, I just lost it. I lost all grip on everything. Everything just started falling apart around me. I just couldn't
Mm.
cope anymore. So I struggled with a substance abuse and things of that nature for well over 20 years.
And
It was a big
Adderall
part of it.
is scary because I watched a doc with my daughter, and the opening of the doc was, if you could take a drug that would give you straight A's, would you take it? And I asked my daughter that question, and she said yes, because her goal is to get good grades, and you get it prescribed to you from a doctor. And then you start to see that it helps you to complete all this stuff, and you're like on top of it. So it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like a drug addiction, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. But then what happens is you get into that obsessive place of getting things done. And then this was at least my experience with that. I can't talk to anybody else's, but I would get into that obsessive place of like, yep, check, done, 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 done. And then all of a sudden it'd be 2 a.m. and I have to go to sleep. I got to get up at work at, 7:30, and then I'm
Mhm.
tired. So then I
Mhm.
take it because I'm tired. And then before you know it, I'm like, I'm stretching the day out, and then I'm missing sleep. I'm totally out of whack. You can't get it. I couldn't get myself into a natural cycle. So I found myself abusing it, taking more than I should because I got to stay awake, because I got to get
Mhm.
this done, but I didn't get enough rest. I remember
Mhm.
one year Christmas, like, I mean, I think I got maybe a half-hour rest before Christmas morning because I was up all night wrapping all the presents, getting everything done, making sure the cookies. I mean, it was, out of control, just out of
Yeah.
control.
So what kind of made you realize like, "Hey, I've got a problem?"
Yeah, so I knew I had a problem. I just didn't know how to stop it. It was like an
Mhm.
out of control train, it just kept buzzing along, and I was beside myself. I really just did not know how to deal with it. And again, that same energy just pushed through, pushed through, pushed through, but it was getting worse and worse and worse. And so finally, where my breaking point was with it was my son at that time. Now he's about like 6 years old, and he's got all sorts of issues, behavioral, emotional. Everybody had been telling me from when he was an infant, oh, he needs to be on medication. Oh, you need to do this. And I was always like, no, he doesn't need any of that. Like,
Right.
I didn't want to put him on anything like that. But it got so bad that it was like really interfering with his abilities in school. And it wasn't even like, he was like one of the top kids in his class, but the emotional aspect of it was just so disturbing and so distraught for him. And it was so painful. So I took him to my psychiatrist just to have him evaluated to see. And at this time now he was going to a psychotherapist for years. He had been getting, various support through either the school system or privately with doctors and things like that since he was 3. And what happened was that the psychiatrist came back with a suggestion to put him either on Ritalin or Adderall. And the second he said that, like it just flashed within me, this knowing that so long as I'm taking this, he's going to end up taking it.
Yeah.
And then I knew in that moment that I had to stop, because if I didn't stop, he's gonna carry on what I'm dealing with on one level or another energetically with this. And that there's no way that I could be hypocritical and me take it, but him not.
Right.
I just knew it. I knew it. And that was the big impetus. That was the huge red flag that I could not ignore, because now the picture, the issue of it was much bigger than myself. It was my child, and it was something that I would be faced with moving forward, into the future. And I knew I didn't want to carry that.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't know how.
Right.
I just knew I didn't want to, I just knew I didn't want it to keep going. So,
yeah. So what did you end up doing?
so in my desperation, and really not so much in my desperation, but in my deep-seated knowing that there had to be a way, I started going back to my original, going back to myself as a child. And I forget where I heard it. I heard it somewhere, and it really stuck with me. I needed to start nurturing myself, and I needed to start doing stuff for me that I knew felt really good for me, because at this time I'm, single parent, taking care of my son, taking care of the house, everything else but me. And I always loved crystals from when I was very, very young. So I started just collecting crystals and just having crystals around me and diving into that like as a hobby. And so one night I was out on my deck. I had a big 40-foot deck, and I had a big 6-foot glass table. And I just started placing all my crystals around on this table. And I used to use the excuse to be out there so I could smoke cigarettes, because I would smoke incessantly. And I just intuitively, I put together a crystal grid. I didn't even know what a grid was, and I just looked up at the stars and I said, what? I'm ready. I'm ready for the next step. I'm ready for my next place. I'm ready to ascend. I'm ready to be done with this. I'm ready. Like, just take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, literally, I was doing it so heartfully and so soulfully and so like in that moment. And that was answered big time. My guides came in very strongly. I can't even say my guides. It really was a few weeks later. I was coming out of a bagel store with a little brown paper bag of bagels. And I had this woman on YouTube talking on a video about crystals. And I just had it like on speakerphone, my phone in my bag. And I was walking out. And as I walked out, the voice stopped speaking. And this other voice came on as if it had already been talking. And it was a completely different voice. And it said these words: "It's okay. Do nothing. Put your feet up. We give you permission." And when I heard those words, it was like my consciousness opened up, expanded hugely, and like this whole download of universal consciousness came into my body, like in a millisecond. It was like,
Wow.
And I just was in shock. I had no idea what happened. I'm literally like falling out of this bagel store now. And I'm in a total daze and shock. Like it happened in a millisecond, and it was very visceral. It was just like my whole world just twisted into this 180, and I was in a whole new space, and I didn't know what it was or even what had happened. It's like as if you were you live your life in a container, that's maybe 10 ounces, right? And then all of a sudden that container opens up to a gallon. And you're like in the middle of the gallon, like how do I fit? Where do I land? That's literally like the best way I can say it. And so in a haze, I went to the car. I plopped myself in the car and I just sat there in shock.
Yeah.
And then I finally came to consciously and I realized, what am I doing?
Where was I going?
Yeah, let me start the car. And I pulled out. When I pulled up to there was it's a parking lot. There's a red light, and I'm sitting there at the red light, and I'm just staring into this red light. And then all of a sudden, I just realized in that moment, like this huge smile came over my face, and I just knew I was waiting for that moment my entire life.
Wow.
Everything I had gone through, everything I had experienced was for this moment right here. This was the moment I was waiting for on a soul level. I was waiting to get to that moment because that's where my mission began. That's where and what it's called is it's called a reincarnation in the same body experience. So that's where you leave your body, you hit a certain level of your development, right, in this lifetime. And at that point, I had a choice. I could either vacate the body and leave, right, pass on to the other side, or I could come in with new upgraded contracts of my work here. And that's what I chose. So I chose to stay. So when the second I left my body, I came right back in with an expanded contract and more of my oversoul monadic group. And that's why that container was so huge. I was like, wah! And that really started. That's what started it. Right from there, I knew, and I still was, smoking and Adderall, but I knew in that moment, this is very short-lived. This is going to end. And I just surrendered. I just completely surrendered to all of it because now I had this deep personal knowing of my mission. And that's like my big advice to anybody, who's struggling with anything is get a sense of what your purpose is. We all have that inside of us, right?
Yeah, we're all here for a purpose.
Exactly. What's your piece of the puzzle? And it's always tied into your traumas.
Yeah.
It's always tied to your greatest lessons.
Yeah, 100%. So were you able to wean yourself off of smoking and Adderall without help, outside help of like AA and things like that, or NA, I should say?
Yeah, like within a week or two.
Oh, wow.
Never went back. And then I went on a mission to clean my whole body out. I went all natural, like organic, raw. I started learning how to grow my own food, working on a farm. I went, again, that push, that drive, full throttle, like,
right. Yeah.
Yes, clean house. I even got rid of my IUD, anything in my dental work. I cleared everything out, even went vegetarian, and vegan. I'm more vegetarian, but yeah, so it was within a couple of weeks, it was done. I was absolutely, and then I pulled my son out of school. I pulled him out of the school system and I took him on as homeschooling. I pulled him out in the second grade and him and I really started like anew together.
Wow. And so how did that work with his issues that he was having where they wanted him on medications?
Yeah, so I never even entertained that for a moment. I just knew that I couldn't. And I knew what he really needed was just the unconditional love, patience, and guidance that really only I could, his parents could give him, i.e. really, that I could give him. And so that's what I did. I dedicated.
And he's fine, right?
He's amazing. Oh my God.
I love it.
He's 13 now. So and we talk about it often. It's the very best thing that we ever could have done,
Yeah. I think that with all the noise of the world and parents being so busy trying to hit those employment marks and then putting food on the table and getting all these things done, that we are kind of not taking that time that our children need. And then they're reacting in a way that is negative. It doesn't sit well with the teachers. And they may say, oh, well, if you just medicate them. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. See, children are the most beautiful reflection of us as the parents. When you approach your child from that perspective, because they are their own individualized being, but they come through our vessel and they come into the environment that we pretty much are, creating, they are a reflection. And all parents know this. They'll see their kid and they'll be like, oh, and they totally see themselves in that. You know what I mean? They know, and it may be things that they don't like. And some parents will react in resisting and pushing that away or reprimanding them not being conscious or aware of that higher knowing that it's coming from within you.
Yeah.
They're an extension at that young age. They are little sponges and extensions of us. So, when you approach a child, and that's one thing I always tried to do it with Tyler, my son, was I tried to approach him from a place of that he's the reflection of me. And if there's any distortion within him, I got to look at myself and see where I am supporting that distortion in whatever way, shape, or form, and work to bring myself more into alignment while being patient and holding the space for his growth.
Right. Right. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. So, how does one go about taking ownership over their past experiences? Because sometimes I think people get hung up on it and it takes them on that downward spiral. So, what advice do you have for someone that is on that kind of a journey and they need to kind of take ownership of that past? How does one start that?
Yeah. And I thank you so much for that question. And I commend anybody who is even attempting to embody or really get into a knowing of what that really means, because it takes courage. Because in our society, we've been so trained that, it's cause and effect from something outside of us, right? And, there's blame or victimhood. And if only they didn't do that, then I'll be okay, that kind of thing. And I can talk from my own personal journey, as well as the journeys of, the clients that I've worked with and the students that I've been blessed to guide. It starts with, first and foremost, knowing that you can only control that is within you, right? You can't control anything outside of you. So just understanding that when difficult things or traumas and things that happened to us when we were younger, first and foremost, to have loving forgiveness as much as you can, and compassion, because in that space of compassion, let's start with compassion, you're able to move back a little bit and you're able to see things from a higher perspective. On a spiritual level, is we all come in with contracts, right? We're all here to learn things, and we're all here to teach things, which are typically one and the same, right? It's a double-edged sword. What you're here to learn is what you're here also to teach. So we come in with these contracts to learn certain things. So for example, I came in, one of my largest contracts, we have multiple of these, and contracts are just really agreements on a soul level. You're agreeing, you're coming in, this is what your purpose is, right? This is what, the challenges you're gonna overcome energetically. And this is what, potentially you can do with it, which is like destiny, free will, that kind of a thing. But what winds up happening is, on a soul level, is like, for example, I came in with empowerment. Let me say this. I came in with the contract to know and experience, for me, because it serves my soul's growth and expansion, to truly know and understand what true empowerment is, to truly come into your power. So think about that. If that's my mission, not my mission, but part of my soul's growth and expansion, I'm not going to be born into a situation where I'm going to be empowered.
Right.
Right? Because you're not going to learn it then. You're only going to learn it if you're coming from the other end of the spectrum of disempowerment, to learn what the empowerment process, like what that means for you. You only can, through that duality, is the only way you're going to be able to understand it. So of course, I'm born into a situation in an environment where I'm completely disempowered.
Yeah.
So if you can see it, like, for example, what I'm talking about here, if you can see it from that end, then you can say, okay, then you are able to have a little bit more compassion for the situation. And then you can embrace the situation so you can work with the situation. Where we have a tendency to get stuck is where we resist. That shouldn't have happened to me.
Yeah.
Why did that happen to me? I don't like it that happened to me. I want to forget that happened to me. That hurt me. That person hurt me, and I can't get over that. Well, then what happens is you don't have it then to work with, because you pushed it away from you. Like if you want to write, you have to take the pen and write. You can't push the pen away, put it down, and expect you're going to be able to do anything with it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So that, is a big thing to at a core level, is to understand you came in. This is where the ownership comes in. You came in with specific templates, contracts through which you're going to have certain experiences. So own those experiences, Own that in one way or another and see it from that level, because then you can work with it and you can work through it and create your superpower. Because truly, it is through our traumas and it's through the most difficult things we have to deal with in our life are our greatest opportunities for expansion. But you first have to embrace it, in a sense, take ownership of it, and then you can work with it, work through it, and transmute it into the power that it truly is. So for me, like, I am truly in a place of empowerment. I have worked with my traumas. I have constructively done, so much in terms of myself and those involved, energetically, through heightened consciousness and the various practices and things that I teach. And, but through that, I've transmuted into empowerment. So now, like, there's no fear there. And it's not that you ever forget. You don't forget, but you're no longer triggered by it. You're able to think about it and be there and see it for the truth of what it is, not the illusion of it, right? Which is the illusion of it is the fear. That's where the fear sits, right? Because we're afraid of feeling that. We're afraid that it's going to hurt us again. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that what really hurts us is the fear. It's not the thing itself.
That is so true. That is so true. That answer completely clicks for me. Why some people can't get past and they can't get out of like their addictive patterns, because they're still in that place of suffering. They didn't realize that you had to go through it, get through it to become who you were supposed to be, right?
Yes. Yeah. And there's many levels and layers, in there. There's so much that we could talk about in terms of how to actually get to that place of acceptance, right?
Yeah.
But first and foremost is to know you're not alone. Mm-hmm. We're all going through it. There's nobody on this planet that's skippity-doo-dah.
No.
And, nobody, people, you might have what seemingly from, and you can't even judge it because you're not within that person to fully assume the operation of their internal state of being, right? Yeah. You can only do that for yourself.
Yeah, because there's too much of my story is worse than your story and all that. And I think people focus on that way too much and then they lose themselves. I heard a monk on a podcast who said, listen, if you think that this earth experience is going to be problem free, yeah, right. It's not going to be.
No, not at all. This is like the greatest school in the universe because it's just so dynamic and diverse and, in comparison, to this universe, I'll get a little esoteric here, is we as human beings are so beautifully unique in that out of all the species that is in the multiverse, we're the only ones who the veil drops when we come into an incarnation. All the others, when they go into an incarnation, their connection consciously to source is intact. We're the only ones where it's not. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because we're playing out a separation from source paradigm, which is you got to be so brave and so courageous to come into a human form on this planet, right? Because it's like no bars held here. You know what I mean? You've got those people who are completely enlightened to those people who are just, wallowing in the depths of the darkness and everything in between, all in one space, trying to get along, right? Trying in that disconnection of frequency to come together. And you're playing this out, not knowing that you are the infinite, you are the embodiment of the infinite creator. You are a individualized consciousness stream having its own experience of source. Mm-hmm. Source is having its experience through you, but we don't realize that. And so there's so much power that we hold in that. And the gift and the ability to say, all right, well, what would happen if we had a species that didn't know it was source itself, right? Like, what would they do? Oh, let's see what that looks like, and that's one thing I try to share as much as I can to those that are ready, willing, and able to receive that message, is that you are source. You are the infinite creator having an experience. And it's a beautiful experience through your individualized, soul consciousness stream that's had infinite lives. Nobody can express what you can express, right? We're all so beautifully unique as our fingerprints.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody's got the same, almost 8 billion people on the planet. No one's got the same fingerprint. That's how unique each of us are, so beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. When you were younger, were you aware that you may be different than maybe say your parents? Like for me, I would sit 5 years old and look at my situation and knew this wasn't right. These people are crazy. Do you know what I mean? Almost like I had this knowing. Did you experience that same thing?
Oh yeah. Well, let me say I experienced it with my mom. Like
Hmm.
I never could jive with her completely. And I loved her unconditionally. I remember being a very young girl, probably maybe 5 years old, and going into her room and telling her that I loved her, not because she was my mom, but because of who she was,
Hmm.
by the time I was 13, I was saying to my father, I don't want to deal with this woman. You married her. Why do I have to deal with her?
Why
I'm
are
like,
you my
I don't want
mom?
to deal with this person.
Right.
Yeah. But like I remember being in the back of my mother's station wagon, this is the 70s where seatbelts, were
Yeah.
non-existent, climbing all over and looking out the back window as we drove down the road and saying, what is this place? Where am I?
Yeah.
I used to play and imagine coming out of the shower that I was walking into a whole different planetary experience, and I would see my brother and be like, like I would just like embody this, like, where am I? Who am I? What is this place? From as long back as I can remember.
Yeah. Are you connected with nature? Do you find that you can connect with wild animals and nature and things like that?
Oh yeah, big time. And every time I walk out of the house, I'm talking to them.
Mhm.
Whether it's the leaves or the bushes or, anything. You should see I have a balcony and it's dedicated to all the creatures. I have creatures of all walks of life up there on that, but don't even know how they get there, but they do. Yeah. So it's a deep connection, deep, deep
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find it hard to shake off the negative people? The things do they come to you, negative people, and do you find that they drain you and that it's hard to shake them off, or are you pretty much past that?
Well, I was challenged with that for the mass majority of my life.
Mhm.
And I wasn't even recognizing them for what they were on an energetic level.
Right.
It wasn't until I was in my early 40s where I became conscious to that. And now I'd have to say now where I'm at in my life, I'm blessed that I don't, and if they are or do come around me,
It's really easy to skirt them. So
there's
for
no,
people who are in that negative where it's almost like I almost envision like Star Wars in the beginning where all the stars are coming at you. If somebody's
Mhm,
in that where there's just negative people, negativity coming at them in that capacity, how do they
mhm.
start to begin to shield themselves from that and get away?
Yeah. The beautiful thing is, we're so innately powerful. We have everything right inside of us. So when you're in that situation, or if you feel that you're currently in that situation, the best thing to do is to realize that all of these people are coming because there's some resonance match within you. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or they're a bad person. There's no, and actually there is no good, bad, or, but just to understand that they're coming as a messenger for you. They are a reflection of some aspect in you that your higher self wants you to clear house.
Mm,
So you pushing away or feeling like they shouldn't be there or they're bothering you is actually attracting more of that same kind of energy. So what you give out is what you get. So if your energy is one of resistance or pushback, or like I feel like you shouldn't or they shouldn't, then you're attracting more of that same kind of energy to you through other people, places, and things of shouldn't, don't want to, right? So if you shift to embracing the fact that they're there and they have a message for you,
mm-hmm.
that they are reflecting some aspect of something within yourself that's looking to come to the surface, well, now you just empowered yourself. So now
Mm-hmm.
you're utilizing them as a tool of growth.
Yeah.
You're utilizing the situation, circumstances, all as a tool of growth for you. So this person comes in, they're annoying you. Okay. Then you start to ask yourself a question. What is it that they are presenting to me that is giving me an insight into something within myself that I'm not recognizing? right? You start going through, and, I have like all sorts of, processes for this very thing. And then what happens is over time, when you do that, when you're asking yourself that question, you're no longer resisting, then the answers start coming much faster and much more fluidly. And then you start peeling the layers of those frequencies, and then those people eventually stop coming around, or they come around, but they're different. I mean, I did this with my own mother, completely transmuted it by inviting her to unleash on me all the feelings of distortion or negativity or whatever, all of her beliefs, and just give it to me, Mom, just bring it on, like what else is bothering you? What else is annoying you? What else is upsetting you about me? Like who I am, what I think, what I do, whatever, and completely transmuted it, where now it's a beautiful, balanced relationship.
Wonderful.
Right? So when you do that internal work and you shift by asking yourself those deep questions and taking ownership of them even being in your environment, you empower yourself to the point that they show up, the external reality shows up differently for you.
Awesome. Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people, because I talk a lot about changing your mindset. I was in my domestic violence height, and I realized I was a negative thinker. I may have been smiling and joking and making everything seem like it was great, but in my head, I was actually having those negative thoughts and attracting the negative that was happening to me. And I had to kind of realize, like, hey, you need to do something different. And so I changed my mindset. And a lot of people go, yeah, but they think when you click that switch that everything's just going to be roses and peaches. That's not the case. You have to learn how to deal, because that's just what this world is. It's made up of a bunch of different energies commingling together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing, but most people, they hear what you say, but then they're like, yeah, but how do you do that? And first and foremost, number one is you got to have a desire. You got to have a deep needed desire. Like in my situation, I married my mother energetically. Had a child with him, and it was horrifically traumatic, very painful and difficult. And I got myself into a situation I didn't know how to get out of it. I couldn't just leave. Like financially, I didn't have the means. I had my son. What do I do? And so what I did was, for the longest time, I was focusing my energy outside myself, trying to make it better. Yeah. Trying to make the situation better. And where it really shifts is where you say, you know what, no more of that. I'm now going to give the energy to me. I'm going to give the attention to me. And I'm just going to work on me. And I'm not going to give my energy away to trying to fix anything outside myself. That's the starting point. You've got to have that desire. And then you got to have that level of knowing and dedication within yourself that you are going to catch yourself when you're giving your energy away. Too much attention and trying to figure out why they are or why this is happening. Just surrender all that and just say, no, how is this affecting me? How do I really feel? What is this situation telling me? Most of the time, actually all the time, it's telling you what you don't want. But the trick is then to transmute that by saying, all right, I know what I don't want. So then what do I really want? And then focusing your energy on what you do want and not focusing your energy on what you don't want. That's the first foundational piece to get in place.
Yeah. And it takes time. It's not something that you can just click the switch,
Yes, absolutely. And you got to give yourself compassion for that. You are unraveling and undoing a lifetime of pattern that is well treaded, right? You got to get those synapses working in a different path, and that takes time, tension, and focus.
So can you share how you were able to forgive your mother? So all those traumas that she placed on you, how were you able to come to a point where you just wiped the slate clean with her?
Yeah, that was a progression. That was not something, it took years for me to get to that point. And it was, again, through all this internal ownership and all the processes that came in that. And it first started off with my approaching her and saying, listen, I just want to have a meeting of the minds. I don't need for you to apologize, but I want us to consciously acknowledge that what had happened.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't want it to happen. We don't need to get into details. Right. I just need that conscious acknowledgement. What happened. And we just both wish it didn't happen. And that was very difficult for her. It took her a few weeks to sit on that before she was actually able to even agree to that. And then it was, really, and here's the thing is spirit, universal intelligence, whatever it is it's always supporting us in our healing journey. Just the way the physical body, right, is always trying to heal itself, right? You get a cut, it creates a scab, so on and so forth. Same thing energetically. When you're on that path, like it not even what you don't even have to be on the path, but energetically, the universe is always trying to heal. It's always trying to bring everything into balance and into alignment. And so what happened with me is as I became more conscious of this need or desire within me to heal it, the universe brought situations and circumstances to bring woundings to the surface. So this is a very important point for people to understand, is that when you're on that journey consciously, like, I do channeled healings. And so like, someone will sit with me and we'll have a session and I'll do a channeled healing. And they'll be like, oh my God, I never knew that I had, I had a deep loathing for, or whatever it may be. I never knew I had this. And we channel and we do this whole healing and clearing. And so this clearing comes in, but then like within a few days, like some situation seemingly that's horrible happens to them. And they're like, wait a second, we just healed that. How come this is coming and presenting itself to me? Like, why is this difficult thing? And what people need to understand, what we need to understand and embrace is that there are certain like beliefs and patterns and things that we hold in ourselves. And when we clear them, the deep rooted under dark belly now is able to rise and come to the surface. So even though you cleared that layer, there's something underneath there now that comes to the surface, kind of the way the skin, you slough off the top layer of the skin, what's underneath it, the bottom layer of the skin.
Right.
And so what will happen is we'll do this beautiful clearing and the person will be like, oh my God, I feel amazing. I feel so free. I feel so light. And then like within a week's time, something else comes that is on a deeper level that presents to them, because now it's able to rise. And now you're on a roll with healing. Like the higher self's like, all right, let's bring this, because now if you see this, now you can clear that too.
Right? It's like a weed. You got to get to the root.
Yep. And that's the thing is that, healing is a journey. It's like you got to peel the layer to get to the layer underneath, and then you peel the next layer. And it's beautifully designed that way so that we're not overwhelmed. Right? Because you can't do it all at once. It would just be too much of a shock. It would be too overwhelming. So the higher self, orchestrates that perfectly. And so when I do like my channeled healings, I'm channeling the person's higher self who's telling me exactly what it is, that next layer that's ready to be released. So having compassion and forgiveness for yourself as you go through this, and the understanding and the patience. Oh my God, the patience, right? Because we want it all to be cleared right away.
Well, yeah, we're in a world where we want it now. Push the button. Yeah. Let's get it done.
Did I answer that question?
You did. Yes, okay, you did. Beautiful. You did. So you were in a domestic violence situation. It wasn't all that great. So how do you explain to somebody who's in it right now and they just feel that hopelessness? Where do they start to get on that path where they can then free themselves from that and then work on themselves?
Yes. So here's the thing, and many people they're like, oh, if I could just be free of that, then I'll be able to work on myself. And I don't want to say unfortunately, because it is what it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
You can break away. You get the opportunity, the window to break away when you're working on yourself. You have to create that. You are the master creator of your reality. Yeah, we're in a co-creation, situation where nobody's an island, but it ultimately comes from within you. And that's where that ownership piece comes in, So you just start focusing in on you. Like for me, I could talk to my path, nourishing myself instead of giving all the energy away to, the fear, the worry, the trauma, the what ifs, when ifs, if I do this, they're going to do that. If I say this, then this is going to happen. What is it going to be like tomorrow? Maybe start practicing bringing the energy into you. And what helps me? What will nourish me? What helps me to feel good? What helps me to bring some joy, some enjoyment, some love or gratitude? How can I give that to myself? one of the reasons why we get ourselves into these situations that are, codependent situations, is because we feel that the solutions and our needs can be satisfied from outside of us.
Mm-hmm.
So starting to practice giving yourself what you need. If you need love, give yourself some love. Maybe that means a bath or a walk in nature, or, a 5-minute not thinking about anything and just being in stillness, or just eating a good salad, or whatever that may mean for you.
Breathing right.
Exactly. Simple things that are free that you could do at any given time, thinking about something you really love and embracing that within yourself, doing these things for yourself. If you want attention, give yourself attention, right? If you want to be nourished or heard, then listen to yourself, tune into you, you can give it all to yourself. Start to funnel the energy into you. Get to know you and build a relationship with you. That's the first foremost starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Is start bringing that energy into you. And when you start bringing the energy into you, then you are expanding and you start to unleash and unlock aspects of you that you're, quite frankly, not tapping into because you're too busy trying to scramble in your external reality to stabilize it. The stability comes from inside you.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't have it, like you said, start breathing into you, breathing into your core, breathing into your root, breathing into the earth, going outside, sitting on the earth, whatever it is that you could bring yourself into your grounding, into your sense of stability, you can give it to yourself. It's not, like you said, it's not going to be an instantaneous thing, but you have to start somewhere and you have to start building within yourself first. Everything comes from within you.
Mm-hmm. And now, because of today's society, we have been conditioned to feel that if we take care of us, we're selfish. What do you say to that?
Yeah. And, we live in an inverted reality. It's an inorganic reality. Everything is like reversed. If you want to be rich, you got to get into debt, or you got to lie, cheat, or steal, right? If we want peace, then we got to go to war. It's a big, big challenge. So you got to see it from that place, that this is an inverted reality, and so start looking at the other side, of that. And here's the big thing, and this is like Bruce Lipton's work, the biology of belief. What you believe sets energetics and frequencies in motion, and we live in a universe of frequency matching. So if you focusing your energy again on what you don't want or on things that don't feel good to you, you're going to keep bringing to you and attracting to you those very types of energies that are going to induce you to feel those same things. So that's where the mindset switch happens.
Mm-hmm.
I say all the time, forget about what you don't want. Focus on what you do want. Focus on what you're creating. But first you got to know, what do you want to create?
Right.
And that only happens by tuning into you. Tune into you. What do you want? How do you want this day to go today when you wake up in the morning? How do you want this meeting to go? When that person comes home from work, how do you want that experience to be? And start focusing on that. Because say, for example, in my relationship, which was very traumatic and very painful for a good 10 years, solid 10 years, I used to focus on, oh my God, when he comes home, what that's going to be like. And I would cringe, and I would send these energy waves out of cringing and worry and concern. And of course, how would he show up? That's what would show up. He would show up and I would be induced to feel those same things. So when I started just bringing the energy into me and what do I want and what do I want to create and how do I want to feel? And it wasn't like a light switch, but those patterns and those energetics, eventually they just got better and better and better and better, to the point that we divorced together. We didn't even use any lawyers. We went down to the courthouse together. It took us almost 2 years, right? No lawyers, right? The courts don't want to make it easy for you, right?
Right.
So
they need that money too.
Yeah, exactly. So, we did it together, no problems, no issues, did it without any lawyers.
So when you shifted your energy, his energy started to shift as well.
Like I said, when you shift from the inside, the external reality matches that. So
Wow.
all that distortion just fell, and again, it didn't happen overnight. It took like probably about a good 3-4 years. But
Mm-hmm.
now it's, we're beautiful co-parents, we get along great, we're friends. It's like what it was from, before we got married or before we had, our son, like, because we were originally friends.
Right.
So, and that was all done very intentionally. Like, I held that vibration, I held that vision, I held that feeling of how I wanted the separation to be. I held it, and wasn't easy. It was rocky, but I kept holding it and
Yeah.
kept stabilizing that frequency, and I created it in the quantum so that when the time was right and everything aligned, it was already well established to walk into.
So you just need to focus and plot your course and stay on course no matter what.
And keep exactly right, and keep discerning, is my choice that I'm making right now aligning with that vision, with what I'm
Mm-hmm.
creating, or is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Is my choice of reaction aligning to that vision, or is it not? And what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking right now, is that aligning to that vision? Like, you have to keep asking the question and keep discerning and keep discerning, and you just keep supporting it energetically, and it is inevitable.
Yeah. I love it. You, when you are trying to work on that, sometimes people have like a chattery mind. How do they stop all those thoughts and clear their
Mm,
mind so that they're nice and clear headed to be able to do that kind of stuff?
yeah, beautiful. First and foremost, practicing mindfulness, just practicing being aware of what you're thinking, right? I mean, again, conditioned to be completely outside of our body most of the time, trying to project, for the safety survival issues. So what it takes first and foremost is just, again, a desire and a drive, and focusing your attention on what are you thinking at any given moment, right? Once you become aware that your mind is going all over the place, then you can catch it, then you can work with it. So one of the things that I teach, as a core foundation for this development, is to be, when you become aware that you're thinking a thought that doesn't feel good to you, that is a projection based on fearful ideas, then you want to clear it. You want to say clear, and you can imagine a white, but you can imagine white dust, or you can imagine sending it to source, right? You say clear, and then what you do is you say, well, what do I want to think? So if it's a fearful thought, like, oh my God, I'm going to be late for work, you want to say clear, and then you want to fill it with, no, I got plenty of time to get to work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
you want to just do that over and over and over with things. Right. Now, here's the thing, is we're going to experience where there's certain things that loop and that are very repetitive and perhaps very painful, fearful ideas. With those, you want to work on those constructively. You want to be aware that you're doing it. You want to do your clearing, but you might want to if you live a busy lifestyle and you're working, you might want to make a note of what that is. Like, say, I'm always afraid I'm going to get hurt,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, there's always this worry, concern, like something horrible is going to happen to whatever, me, my child, whatever. And then you want to work on those constructively, because those fears are anchored by some distorted program that you're holding deep within yourself, that within the subconscious. So I always attune those to, like, a fisherman, right? The trigger is the anxiety ridden thought, but, and that's like the fishing pole. But at the end of that line at the bottom of the ocean is the program
Mm-hmm.
that needs to come to the surface to be seen, felt, heard, and experienced so that it could be released. Right. So it's the combination of those two things, and I have like a whole process that, step by step, that helps with that. But you got to work with those things constructively. First, recognize, do the clearing on it, fill it with the new program, what you do want, which is typically opposite of what you don't want,
Right.
right? Make it super easy. And then working constructively with those repetitive, anxieties or fears or worries.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes complete sense. So, how does one find their passion after a life like ours?
Oh, yeah. Yes. So there's a few things. One is, go back to your childhood, and what is it that you really loved? What
Mm-hmm.
is it that really fulfilled you? what is it that would keep you up all night long, right? That you were so interested in, whether it was a certain hobby or idea, or maybe it was science or, gardening or whatever it may be. That's a really good indication. So like, for example, with myself, when I was younger, I was addicted to any kind of divination or metaphysics. So like, I loved learning about numerology and astrology and handwriting analysis and all of those fun things. And so that really was it's a key part of my passion, is like helping people and working with various metaphysical tools that can enhance pinpointing, healing and expansion and things of that nature. So look back at your childhood. Like, what is it that you really, really loved, right? That's a great first starting point. And then think about, what really are you passionate about now in your life? Like, what really means something to you? Maybe you love organic gardening and that really lights your fire. Or, maybe you're somebody, you love to help people. Or, maybe you're somebody who you just love to talk and share with people. You love to network, right? And if you can take those things, right, along with the things that you're really good at, right? So, you first write down what childhood things really, really, turned you on, really lit you up. And then what really are you passionate about now? What do you really stand for? Like, if you had a message, what would that message be, right? What would you want the rest of the world to follow you in because you just believe in it that much, And then along with like what really, you're passionate about, what really drives you, along with your skills, like what skills do you have? What is it that you're really good at? Maybe you're really good at writing, or maybe you're really good at, sharing ideas with people, and people get it because you could just articulate it so well. Like, what are your skills and talents? Like, so for example, in my case, I was an actress for a lot of years. And so I've gotten really good at being able to listen and communicate and present and things like that. Like, and then taking my childhood passion of like, divination and metaphysics and, and then what I'm really I'm passionate about the ascension. I'm passionate about the awakening of the human race. I'm passionate about leveling up the level of the quality of the human experience, like really leveling it up. And I kind of put it all up into a ball and I created like my own thing. So,
which is leading me into, do you want to talk about what program you offer and how people find you?
Yes, thank you so much for that. So you can go to my website, which is youaresource.co. So that's all spelled out, YOUARESOURCE, and it's .co as in co-creation.com. And then you can find me on various social media outlets. Like the spelling of my name is super unique. So if you just Googled me, like you can just, no problem. But I'm known as Lady from Source on various like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And so my programs is I offer it's called Moon Manifesting and More, where we meet once a month. It's a live online, we meet and we talk about the various energetics through the cosmos and how to capitalize those energies and what they specifically mean for us as individuals and how we can utilize them to propel ourselves into the next evolution of ourselves or into what it is that we're looking to create or manifest in the world. And I do a live channeled healing every month with that group, depending upon what comes through. And then I have another group that I do. It's called the Deep Dive Chakra Healing Group. So that's where we get into like all of these core practices to really be able to work with who we are, what we have, the programs that we hold in the various chakras, and be able to transmute those and work with those in a practical day-to-day setup and structure. So it's practical tools, tips, and things like that, and ways that you can on your own transmute and heal the distortion that are held within the various levels of your energetic fields. Those are the two main group programs. And then I do offer, it's exclusive, but I do offer one-on-ones, to work with people who really want to dive really deep, really fast, and get to their next evolution of themselves as efficiently as possible.
Nice. I love it. I love it. What else would you like to share with everybody?
Thank you so much. Well, first I want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to come on
Oh,
here
of course. Thank
and
you
to
for being
share and
here.
shine with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so beautiful. So just know that you are source, right? You have it all right inside of you. Everything that the creator has, you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just under all these levels and layers, programming, imprinting, and conditioning. And it's truly our destiny to come into our full power as a collective on this planet. And to trust you, because you know better than anyone else. And just know that everything that's happening in this world is happening for a reason. Nothing is ever happening to you. It's always happening for you, as you, through you, right? Because everything is source itself having its own unique, experience. So yeah, just know that you're all powerful, truly, right? And I know that can be scary. That can be
Mm-hmm.
scary for some, but
It,
just embrace that on one level or another and allow it to unfold.
yeah, I think that it does scare people because they think of it in terms of like, oh my God, it's like witchcraft. Right? Has anybody ever
Yeah.
said that to you?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's been many, many years, but yes, I have had people say that to me, like, are you talking about like witchcraft? Yeah, no. It's all energy, vibration, and frequency, right?
Yeah.
Nikola Tesla, that's what it is. And so if some people feel like they can't get that, but they can grasp onto this idea of witchcraft, then so be it. Right?
Right. Yep. I had a guest on, and I'll be airing her episode along with yours this weekend. And she does a lot of energy healing because she has a lot of ailments, and so she talks about how that's helped her in healing. A lot of people do manifestations in business and it has brought them abundance. And so I love that you came on and shared your story with us. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you. So much love and be well.
You too. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. If you liked this and other episodes, please click subscribe, like, and share so others can enjoy them too. Thank you so much for listening.